Let's go straight to our political panel now. Alex Pappas is a political reporter for the Daily Caller, and Aaron Blake is a political reporter for the Washington Post. It's nice to have you both back on our program. Aaron, I'm curious your thoughts on health care overall, whether it's Walker or Rubio talking about it. How do you see that topic trending at this point in the campaign?
Well, it's one of those issues that's always going to be there. It's obviously one of the biggest Republican rallying cries. Pretty much every Republican is going to want to talk about this and talk about the ways they deal with it. I don't know that we've seen a whole lot of differentiation on this issue, though. There's a lot of talk about repealing Obamacare, not a whole lot of talk about specifically what would be replaced with. And I also think, it's a very difficult issue for Republicans because really, unless they win the White House and unless they have the big enough congressional majorities in order to repeal it, it's just something that's going to be very tough for them to do. Alex,
I'm curious your thoughts on this as well, because viewers as well as journalists are always asking for substance, right? They want the details of the plan, but we've seen so much talk about immigration. I'm just wondering your thoughts on how effective it is right now to speak about health care and how much you think that's on the forefront of voters' minds.
Well, clearly Scott Walker's trying to be substantive, but at the same time, he's also just trying to get attention. And so, if you go and look at what he was saying when he unveiled this today, he's, hitting D.C. Republicans, saying, I'm from Wisconsin. I don't understand why these senators who ran, the last couple cycles saying they're going to repeal Obamacare and haven't done it yet. That's why we need an outsider. And it's all part of Scott Walker trying to jump in on this whole thing of, the outsiders know, what's best. Just look at these polls that have come out. The three people that have improved the most with their polling numbers and that are doing the best: Donald Trump, Ben Carson, Carly Fiorina. Somebody like Scott Walker, I think, is afraid of being overshadowed. His numbers are taking a hit, and I think he sees this as a way to kind of accomplish that.
It's interesting, though, if you look at those three names that Alex just mentioned, Aaron, all of them are really going after Hillary Clinton. If you look at Donald Trump or Carly Fiorina, they're very direct with their criticism of Hillary versus going after fellow Republicans, although they do criticize the establishment. What is more effective at this point?
Right. I think, that's obviously what really appeals to the Republican base right now. Fiorina comes at this from an interesting position that nobody else can, as the only woman in the field. Ben Carson is very much a non-politician who can argue that somebody like Hillary Clinton has been in Washington too long. And then obviously Donald Trump, this is a guy who during his career, his business career, has been very supportive of Hillary Clinton, said very nice things about her. He's turned a 180 on this. He's been very difficult on her, calling her the worst Secretary of State ever. But, he has the microphone to do this. He's all over the media. He's the story everybody's talking about. So to the extent he can use that microphone to talk about Hillary Clinton and turn into her kind of enemy number one, I think that's all the better for him.
All the better for him. And what about the rest of the candidates, though, Alex? Does it create a situation where they, too, have to join in on that, as they have felt forced to join, for example, the conversation on immigration?
Right. Well, we know the one thing that doesn't work actually is going after Donald Trump. Look at Rand Paul's numbers. His slogan is defeat the Washington machine. You would think this would be perfect for him, and actually they're going down. Look at the three people that have gone after Donald Trump the most. You've got Rand Paul, Rick Perry, Lindsey Graham. Rand Paul's numbers are going down. Rick Perry's numbers are at like 2%. Lindsey Graham's not even registering in the polls. And so I think a lot of people are realizing that, going after Hillary Clinton, trying to show that you're more, outsider, trying to emphasize that, even though sometimes that can be in funny ways. Jeb Bush, even at the Iowa State Fair, is arguing that because geographically he's not from Washington, D.C. and was a reform-minded governor, that he's an outsider too. That's what I think everybody's going to try to do now and kind of shine away from actually going after Donald Trump.
That is interesting. Who is born in Washington, D.C.? If you're born in Washington, D.C., I guess you can't run for president. That disqualifies you, according to Jeb Bush. I want to ask you guys about this article in the New York Times. We were talking a little bit about Carly Fiorina. There's what's been described as a blistering article in the New York Times about her career. And here's just the title of it for our viewers who may not have seen it. Carly Fiorina's business record, not so sterling. In it, just again for our viewers that perhaps haven't seen it, the article's criticizing her time at HP, basically saying the numbers that she's putting out there are not exactly the numbers that she should be talking about. It doesn't quote the past or current employees of HP that have worked with her, and I wanted to note that because we've talked a lot about this article that the New York Times published about Amazon that really went and quoted actual people. This is not that. So I want to make that distinction. But, Aaron, what about this? How big of a deal is this for Carly? You have this national newspaper going after her record. Do you see some weakness there?
Well, this is a story that was always going to be written about Carly Fiorina if she got the kind of momentum in this race that she has right now. This was very much at issue during her 2010 Senate campaign in California. It was the top attack against her in that race, which she lost by 10 points to Barbara Boxer. I don't know if it's the worst thing in the world for her to have the New York Times writing this article. I think it's kind of been a badge of honor for Republican candidates, particularly Marco Rubio, who's been on the receiving end of some of these reports. And so to the extent that the Fiorina campaign can poke some holes in this story or say that it wasn't fair, I think that she can actually get some more recognition from the Republican base and kind of be the candidate who's taking on the Times.
Interesting take on that, Alex. What do you think of Barron's take on that? And also, what do you think about the articles not quoting people that have actually worked with her? I'm really curious when that's going to happen. The board members that were a part of the company when she was forced out, people that have worked with her for years. When do you expect to see them either coming forward in support or criticism, and how do you think that'll add a dynamic to this story?
Yeah, well, once you're a top-tier candidate, and Carly Fiorina actually is a top-tier candidate, she's now in the top 10. According to the polls, people, of course, are going to go and start examining this stuff. And as Aaron said, this was examined a lot when she ran for the Senate back in 2010. It's not just, though, the Democrats, actually, that are attacking her on this. Donald Trump, mentions it every time he can. When Carly Fiorina's gone after him, he always says,
do you think he has a weakness, though, too? I mean, that's interesting. But do you think he has a weakness, too? Because his finances, his businesses, they've been under scrutiny for his entire career.
Yeah, of course he does. But since when is anything in Donald Trump's past actually come back to hurt him? I mean, he has this unique ability actually to swat away all sorts of stuff, and nobody seems to care as much as they will when it comes to other candidates. But Carly Fiorina actually has kind of an interesting answer. She says yes, she acknowledges that she was fired, but says that's what happens when you challenge the status quo. And Oprah Winfrey, Steve Jobs, They all were fired at points in their lives, and so that's her answer.
She even mentions Walt Disney in there. So she says she's amongst interesting company. So we'll see how this plays out. Again, the first real article we're seeing on it from the New York Times, so we thought it was notable, but we'll see where it goes from here. Alex, Aaron, great to have you both. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you.